Hello, yes, my name is Michael Smith, National Consumer Education Manager of Janome, Canada, and thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed our Serger week, all this past week at Janome Canada Instagram Live. Now, next week, the Janome Canada Instagram Lives will be Tuesday and Thursday, same time, 1 p.m. Eastern. And then the following week, after that, they will be again Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So we're alternating. Now, if you follow our Janome Life blog, if you type in your browser Janome Life, and there's a follow button on the main page of Janome Life, then Liz sends out a reminder every day that we're doing a Janome Canada Instagram Live. She sends out a reminder on Janome Life in an email, hey, we're going to have a Instagram Live. So it's a great way to be reminded of when we're going to be doing these Instagram Lives. So sign up to follow us on Janome Life. I've got my adorable cameraman Joe with me again today. He's going to read me any comments and questions that you have, which again I'll try to answer during the live portion of the presentation. But if not, I'll get to them as soon as we go off the air. Again, I've got lots of information to share with you. So today we're going to talk about doing rolled hem on a serger and the adjustments you can make to do many multiple rolled hems. So if you look, most of us are familiar with the Serger standard 3-thread overlock here. And a great tip to follow when you're new to serging, you're going to start making some adjustments on your serger, is do a different color for each of the components, each of the loopers, each of the needles, and that way you can gauge your adjustments a little easier. If you'll see, now today I'm demonstrating on the Janome AT2000D, the air thread serger, but again, this rolled hem can be done, I think, virtually on all of our sergers, so it doesn't need to be this top of the line one. Although, again, if you're ready to upgrade, looking forward to purchase a serger, maybe take that leap, you can go to our website, janome.ca, and Janome is offering a lot of great deals now. You'll see the spring flyer on the website. Janome Canada is even drop shipping machines to your door. So you can go online, call your dealer, order the machine, and they'll ship it directly to you. So you'll see on all the sergers that they're color coded. So I've got my left needle, my right needle, my upper looper, and my lower looper. Now the threads, colored threads that you use, they don't have to be these exact colors, but just using a colored thread for each of these different threading guides will help you adjust your tensions to really understand them. So in this case, I'm doing a rolled hem today, so I'm not using my left needle. I'm using the right needle because it's a little closer to the knife blades. That'll keep my rolled hem a little more narrow, which is generally what we want. So I've got yellow in my needle thread, my right needle. I've got red in my upper looper, and I've got blue in my lower looper here. Now that's, again, your standard 3-thread overlock. Now to do the rolled hem with just a couple of adjustments in your machine, here is my beautiful rolled hem. And again, you'll see I've got yellow in my needle, I've got red in my upper looper, and I've got blue, you can barely see it, blue in my lower looper. And that's because the upper looper, the red thread, is wrapped around, maybe you can see that. Yes, okay, perfect. The red thread is wrapped around to the back, again, creating our rolled hem. So very fun technique to do. Now, when would you typically use this rolled hem? Napkins are one of the best thing to start with, just a square or a rectangle of fabric, easily stitch all around the edge, very beautiful. Or here I'm working on this scarf right now as a sample, and here you'll see on the right is the traditional 3-thread overcast. Looks fine, but I think on the left is the rolled hem. Looks a little nicer, adds a little more pizzazz. Now I could just do this in black and white, or the rolled hem can also be a decorative element as well. So why not make it red and really stand out? So it's a great, easy technique to do. Erin was doing gathering Wednesday on the Instagram Live, so I gathered with my serger and then finished off this ruffle. How cute is that? With a rolled hem, and again, beautifully finished on the underside. Now I used black in this case for my lower looper, but typically you would use the same color of thread in your all three guides in your needle, your upper looper and lower looper. So it would blend right into your fabric, or again, use it as a decorative element too. So that's typically when you would use a rolled hem. And again, very simple adjustments to do on your machine. Oh, I've got a sample here to show you on virtually any fabrics. This is regular standard t-shirt knit. This is a thicker fleece. This is like a rayon acetate lining. This is a thicker canvas, another thin, lightweight knit. So all of these are rolled hem. They're slightly different sizes though, based on the thread you use, your fabric, of course, and the adjustments you make to your machine. So that I'm going to show you. So typically when we do a rolled hem, I'm going to open this up so you can see a little better. You would follow the instructions in your manual. Now, if you can't find your manual, you can go to our Janome.ca website, or if you're joining us from America, Janome.com, scroll to the bottom of the screen and it says support. You click on that tab, it'll take you to another screen and there'll be a tab that says manuals. So you click on the manuals and then you will find your manual there. There's even a retired section. So machines that are no longer in production, the chances are you'll find them there. So find more information on how to adjust this rolled hem. But typically you would see on the side of your machine somewhere will be a little dial or a little lever here. S is for standard serging and R will be for rolled hem. And that is going to allow me to adjust this stitch finger is up here where my stiletto is. Now the stitch finger is in play when we're doing standard serging, so it would be on S, and that's what my stitches will form over. It'll support the stitches as they go around the fabric. When I do a rolled hem though, I'm going to retract it to R and you're going to see that stitch finger disappear. So again, standard serging, stitch fingers in play, rolled hem, the stitch finger is now out of play. And now the stitches are going to form on this much more narrow stitch finger, which is closer to my right needle. So again, that's why I want to use the right needle as opposed to the left needle. It'll just make for a smaller, more narrow rolled hem. But again, it's your rolled hem. You can use whichever you wish. The nice thing is to do a bunch of samples and see what you prefer. So on the side of my machine, I'm going to go over to adjust the stitch length. Now, typically when I'm doing regular serging, it's a 2.5 or a 3, but I'm going to adjust that to an R for rolled hem. Now, I'm actually going to take that down a little further to a 1, so I'm going to have my stitches closer together. They're going to give me a little bit better coverage, and I'll show you some examples of that in just a minute. Now, I go up here to my color-coded tensions, and again, I'm not using my left needle. I'm just doing my right needle, upper looper, lower looper. So my needle, I'm going to increase my tension. So the higher the number, the higher your tension. The lower the number, the lower your tension. So I always think of which way do I want to adjust. I want to go up tight. So I'm going to increase my tension to be a little tighter. Or if I want to loosen my tension, I'm going to go down low. So it would go down, the lower the number. So that's how I always remember which way to go. So my needle tension is up. Now standard tension's about 3 in most cases for most sergers. So I'm just going to go up to a 4. Then I'm going to go over here to my lower looper. And again, standard's about 3, but I'm going to also increase the tension to a number 4. Now why I do that, if my fingers here, this is my upper looper and this hand is the lower looper, and they generally meet, the threads meet in the middle over the raw edge of your fabric. But by increasing my lower looper tension, I'm going to pull that upper looper thread a little more to the back. Now I can even go one step further and I can decrease my upper looper tension. So normally it's about a 3, but I can decrease it to a 1. And again, I would experiment and find out which is best for your fabric and your thread. But by doing that, then that means my lower looper that is at a higher tension than my upper looper is really going to pull that upper looper around to the back and make for a tighter, smaller rolled hem, and hence the name. The upper looper is rolling around to the backside, so that's my rolled hem. Now I can make it further tighter and smaller if I have this adjustment on my serger. Now, not all of our sergers have this, but our Pro 40X serger, for example, has this in addition to the AT2000D. Now, this is a pre-tensioner of my lower looper. So I have my looper tension up here, but this is an additional tension for my lower looper before it gets to the needle. I can add a little bit more tension to it. So right now it's on standard, or then I just click it over to tight. And again, that just makes it a little tighter on the lower looper. So it's going to pull that upper looper thread a little more to the back. And I can show you that sample here. This is my original sample here. This is my tighter rolled hem. I know they look very similar. This one is slightly more narrow, but you can really see the difference when I turn it around to the back. This was my original sample. You can see more of that red thread wrapped around to the back. And here, this is the one using that tight pre-tensioner of the lower looper. It's really pulled the upper looper thread to the back. You can barely see that red because it's covered with the lower looper. So it's a really nice, tight rolled hem, very professional. And again, if I used all matching color of thread to my fabric, you would virtually not even see that. So it's a great option. Now, if you don't have this feature of your serger, then I would simply turn up the tension of your lower looper a little more. So instead of a 4, I might go up to a 6 or maybe even a 7. It'll go all the way up to a 9. So again, you take your fabric. This is a great time. Oh my. This is a great time to use that fabric that you look in your stash and go, oh, what was I thinking? What is that ugly fabric? Cut it all up and use it for samples. So you'll see in this one I used all red thread and how beautiful of a finish that is. So again, that's by tightening up my lower looper really tight to really wrap that thread around and make it a nice tight rolled hem. So there's some, oh, then before I get to that, I wanted to talk, then I've got so much to think about, so much to remind myself, that I went down to a number 1 in my threading. And why I do that, you'll see on this example, here is my regular R rolled hem, and it's a nice, simple, looks good, but I see a lot of white through that fabric underneath. So in order to get better coverage, if you look over to the left, then this is where I've reduced my stitch length to a number 1. So my stitches are closer together. I get a little better coverage there. You can't see white under there at all. If you look over here on this sample to the right, again, I use the R, standard rolled hem, and it looks okay, but I can still see a lot more of that fabric underneath than I really prefer to see. So by turning it down to a 1, I do get better coverage, but even this is still not as much coverage as I would like. So in this case, I would simply just go over this hem twice. You can totally do that. If it's not the results you really like, try going over a second time and you get better coverage that way. But a good way to get good coverage is the thread that you use in your loopers, since they go around the edge of the fabric. So if you tuned in on Monday, then I alluded to this Madeira Arrow Lock and Madeira Arrow Flock thread. Now, Janome Canada is distributor of Madeira threads, so you can contact your Janome dealer and see if they carry this thread, or they could certainly order it in for you. Now, I hope you can see that this is regular Madeira Arrow Lock polyester serger thread. This is the Madeira Arrow Flock, also polyester serger thread. Now, this thread may look familiar to some of you since it's a little fuzzy, it's got a little more texture, so it is great coverage in your loopers, in particular for rolled hems. I have it in blue and I have it in red in my lower looper and upper looper, respectively. So great coverage. You may be familiar with the term woolly nylon, but this is not nylon, this is polyester. It's woolly poly. So I prefer it, actually. I find it behaves a little better. It's a little softer. I can press over it, no problem. Now, I don't want to park my iron on here permanently, but I find it presses more readily. It doesn't scorch and burn as quickly as nylon. So I'm really in love with it. Then, as well, Serger thread typically is notoriously linty based on its construction, but I find that both of these are very low lint. So that's another reason why I really like them in my Serger. I don't have to worry about cleaning as often. Another thing I loved about these spools, look at that. I can wind my thread around the bottom of my spool and then just click that shut so it holds my thread into place. So isn't that cool? Something so simple and so basic, but oh, it's wonderful to keep the thread drawer organized. So that will help make a beautiful rolled hem. Oh, and I want to talk about this down here, castor eyes. You may wonder, what in the world is that? If you find some of your heavier threads won't go through your threading process, whatever it is, by either the air thread or just regular threading, you can get these cool things. They are the looper threaders. Now, these come in a little package. If you see here, they come in a little package with the AT2000D serger. So this little package comes with your air thread serger. But if not, you could call your Janome dealer or again, email them and ask them, could they order you some looper threaders? I double checked, and yes, these are in our warehouse. So they are able to order these looper threaders. They come in a package of 2, and they will help you thread regular thread, but especially if you've got some thicker, more decorative thread that it's a little hard to get through your regular threading process. If you have this looper threader, it's a thin, flexible wire, but one end has a loop on it. And I would put my thread through that loop, and then I'm going to thread my threading guides as normal. And if you follow me over here to the left, I'm going to then pull the other end of that wire right through my threading guides. Now, for those of you that own the AirThread AT2000D, this is also how you're going to clean your loopers. I didn't have time on Monday to show you, but again, it's in the manual anyway. But this is how you're going to clean your loopers. You're just going to pull a strand of thread through your threading guides and particularly your loopers, and that's how you're going to clean them. And again, this is how you can get all that wiry metallic thread or the floss, any of those textured thread through your threading guides easily. So there's your looper threaders. So then another adjustment on how you can make a beautiful and more narrow rolled hem is you can adjust the width of your cutting blades. So if you want to, again, follow me down here, this is my lower knife. And let me raise up my upper knife. So there's my upper knife. And they generally, for most over-edge serging, I'm going to have them in line with the thread guide there. Now, again, that's according to my manual. You double check yours. And you can adjust the width of these knives to give you a deeper or more narrow seam. So if I turn this knob to the clockwise, then I'm going to move my knife further away from my needle, and that's going to give me a wider seam. Now, if I go the other way, counterclockwise, you may be able to see this knife is now retracting closer to my needle. I'm going to park it up against right to the bed of the machine. And again, closer to my needle, so it's going to give me a smaller, more narrow seam, over edge seam, or it's going to give me a more narrow rolled hem. So if you, oops, that's my wrong sample. Oh, I'm going to show you this one, sorry. So this is what I'm going to show you. So you'll see here that I did, again, a bunch of testing to do. This is 3 millimeters. From moving the knife over. This is 5 millimeters, so that's a nice wide stitch. So again, I've moved the knife further away from the needle to make it wider. This is 4, again, about standard. And then this up here was 3 millimeters, R1. So I did my rolled hem, but I adjusted it to a 1, so it's even tighter. And I used the tight feature of having my pre-tensioner on the lower looper. So whenever I do, again, different techniques, I like to make myself a sample reference card. And if any of you come to my Serger classes at the Janome Sewing and Learning Center, we're going to be doing exactly this. that, because these adjustments you don't make every day. So I always like to have a reference you can go back to refer to later. So I always write everything down so then you can go back to refer later. Now, something else to give you a nice narrow rolled hem is maybe your serger can adjust to a 2-thread. You can go from the standard 3/4 thread down to a 2-thread. And here are some examples of that. This is regular normal serger thread. This is using the Madeira Aero flock, and this is a 2-thread. And look how narrow and fine, again, on bridal and evening wear, like how beautiful that would be. If this were white, again, I'd virtually not even see it, but it could also become a decorative element as well. There's the front looking beautiful, and that's the back. Again, how beautiful the rolled hem is. And this is, again, using 2 threads. So maybe your serger can do this. Again, consult your manual. But how we're going to adjust this AT2000D is, I alluded to this tool on Monday. This comes with the AT2000D, and half of it is a needle inserter. So it holds my needle in place while I put it in. But the other half is this blunt little point there, and I'm going to put that in this little hole here. And what that is, what this tool allows me to do, swings it over in place. And what this is, this piece of metal, and there's a little nub here. And what that is a spreader. And what that does is it converts my 3/4 thread serger to a 2-thread. I'm going to put this little nub here in the hole. Sorry, my hand has to come in place. There's a hole in my upper looper. So I'm going to plug that, and I'm going to trick the machine into thinking it's threaded. Now, our Pro 4DX serger also has a spreader on a separate piece. There's a little white plastic that goes onto this post, and then there's a little wire that will plug that hole as well. So again, check your manual to see maybe you have a spreader that's in your accessory box that you would attach to your upper looper. I have no thread in my upper looper at all. And I'm going to plug that hole to, again, trick it to think that it's threaded.
Question, when would you use a 2-thread?
So when I would use a 2-thread on my little sample here is how fine and how delicate that is. So typically I would use it, again, on like sheer fabrics or netting, something very, very fine. Then you can see perhaps on this sample. So I have no red showing at all. I just have my yellow for my needle and my blue for my lower looper. It's come around to the front completely. Now you may see these little pokies coming out. Can you see those little pokies? Don't look so nice. When I flip this around and say, oh, this sample looks way better. This is another little tip and trick I can share with you. How do I avoid all those little pokies? So this is another sample I have. This is regular 3-thread. Again, it doesn't look too bad, but it's more pizzazz to this netting if I try to use a rolled hem, and particularly with the contrasting thread to make it more decorative. Now, this is my standard rolled hem. Doesn't look so great. I would probably have to use my differential feed in order to eliminate that gathering. But if you look on this side here, doesn't that look beautiful? I didn't adjust any machine settings at all between this hem and this hem. It's the same machine settings. What I used is, one of my favorite secrets is water-soluble stabilizer. Now this is Madeira Avalon Ultra that I really love, but there's many different types. And where I got these from are our Madeira starter set. I again check with your Janome dealer to see if they carry the Madeira stabilizers. And if not, they can order for you. And it's a sample pack of many different types of stabilizers. There's tearaway and iron-on and water-soluble. And there's a booklet that tells you exactly how to use them all and when. Another of my favorite water-solubles is this Avalon film that's a little bit thinner. But I really love this Avalon Ultra because it's a little thicker and very stable. So what it does is adds more stability to these very flimsy fabrics. So I put my fabric on the bed of the machine. I put my water-soluble stabilizer over top, and I serge, in this case, my little rolled hem. So here's my rolled hem. I do a little clip next to the seam allowance. or next to the seam. And then I'm going to pull this water-soluble stabilizer off, all this extra. I'm going to pull off, and it just rips right off very easily. Now, the rest of this I'm going to use for another project, or I'm going to dissolve it in a spray bottle full of water, and then it becomes like your own stabilizer. So this is what gives you that beautiful rolled hem finish. And after you're done, maybe you want to leave that water-soluble stabilizer in there for a little bit more body to the hem of your garment or whatever the project is. Or you just immerse this in water, spritz it with a spray bottle. I often lay it down on the pressing surface and I hover my iron over it and use lots of steam, and that will help dissolve that water-soluble stabilizer. So it's very flexible, but it leaves you with this beautiful rolled hem. So that's a cool little tip and trick. Now, something else you can do with your serger, though, we're all making masks now, and I posted on Janome Life, maybe about a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, about mask covers. This is one of the N95 masks, and I used the serger to make a mask cover, and I used just the tails of the serger thread as my ties. You know, elastic is always in such short supply. So you can tie your mask cover that way. Or this I did with the rolled hem to cover my mask. And I even put the elastic on at the same time as I did the rolled hem. So I caught the elastic as I was doing the rolled hem. So that's a very cool thing to do, very quick and easy. Or when you're doing your rolled hem, you just keep serging long tails of this serger thread. And then what you do, this is a tip I did in college when I studied fashion design, fold this in half to make a loop. And if you're making a strapless dress or a skirt and you're wondering, how am I going to hang that? You make a little loop with your serger thread, your rolled serger thread, and attach this in the side seam or attach this to your waist seam. And that's how you're going to hang your strapless dress or your skirt. Or another fun project to do with your serger is this little girl here. Where should I go? This are the straps for the dress is the serger, again, rolled hem thread. And even the little ponytail tie is, again, the rolled hem serger thread. I did a quick rolled hem on this big cape. Again, maybe 10 minutes and Barbie's got a new outfit for the weekend. So how fabulous is that? So again, there's lots you can do with your serger, particularly rolled hem, lots of techniques. Any questions before I sign off? If not, again, I can answer them afterward. So if not, I will say goodbye. Again, always conscious of time. Enjoy your weekend, everybody.